century Jewish belief, it wouldn't have been terribly uncommon to have these ideas. Like saying that the Word was God wouldn't have been as problematic as it was for later Jews, or referring to even the Spirit of God and the Word of God. Talk. Tick-tock, time to rock! That's how it goes.
Oh, we're live?
Okay. Yeah. That's how it goes when we're in the studio. AP on the shofar. What is that? Seriously? During Islamophobia Awareness Month?
What?
You showing that thing during Islamophobia Awareness Month?
Well, people need to be aware of Islamophobia, and the fact that Islamophobia gives Islam big L's like this. This is a big L.
Oh, okay. That's actually...
L?
That's a J, dude. Turn it around.
Sorry. Here.
There you go.
No,
There you go. Smart Turkish dude still learning his ABCs.
Well. As an immigrant, I think I'm doing a pretty good job.
AP still got one of those little writing pads with the dotted lines on them that they give us in kindergarten, practicing his J's and his L's, his J's and his L's.
Yeah, it's right here.
Wowzers! Wow!
Readings
Hey,
indicate
AP.
an echo nearby.
How you doing?
All right, man. How you do?
So yesterday, I don't remember when.
All my
people
troubles
saying-
seem too far away.
I just have a little cold. Didn't sleep right, that's all. Sorry, sir. I'm gonna need you to come with me. Hey, let go of me!
Let him go, Mark. Mark, let him go.
Hey.
Go.
No, hey, you should make it a shofar song, and it could be "All My Troubles Are So Far Away."
Oh, yeah. That's good. All my troubles are so far away. That's good.
That's good. That'd be dope. Hey, what's this? Did we cover something about this? I don't remember what this is about, but I remember this name. What is this? You should touch on how Osman Gold's apology turned into Osman Gold causing the ad meltdown due to Hassan over on Twitch. It is kind of related to subject matter. I don't remember. I remember we covered something. What was that? What is this even talking about? We covered something
Osman
with
Gold.
Osman Gold.
Was that guy with that mildly long hair streamer on Twitch? Who
Oh, the one who started talking trash about Islam?
No, who said that those who want genocide, I don't care if they get genocided and so on.
Yeah.
And then he issued an apology, and then the apology was like, "I will now be a better person and clean my room and clean my house," and it kind of derailed. Something happened. I don't know what happened.
Oh, so it caused an ad meltdown? Things like that tend to happen.
His own company that he founded kicked him out, and then ads were like, "We don't want to work with you anymore." So,
Those kinds of things happen. You remember the old adpocalypse several years ago on YouTube, where someone started posting on Twitter or something like that. Look, the Coca-Cola ads running on this white supremacist account, and this Coca-Cola is funding this person. And the reason it hadn't been flagged is because it had like 41 views or something like that. No one had seen it. That's why it was still running. That's why it hadn't been flagged. But then they cracked down, and all the companies say we can't allow this. We can't allow this, and they shut down like $15 billion worth of ads from YouTube, and then YouTube had to crack down on hate speech everywhere, even though it had nothing to do with anything. And their systems in place are good for anything that's actually getting any traction, which that video wasn't. And if I recall correctly, that dude was making literally nothing, because the only reason his video was monetized was because he played a clip of a monetized video in his video, and that other video he played a clip of to attack it was actually getting the revenue. Anyway, you have people flip out over something, complain, and then companies have to modify the rules, and then a bunch of stuff happens. Fun stuff.
That's
All right. So,
Powerful
gonna-
stuff.
put a poll out here. Start a little poll,
This
because this debate... I'm guessing you didn't see this debate.
no.
Nor have
seen
I.
much
I just
kindness
know that
lately.
it's Mike Jones, who I know, and the other guy whom I don't know. But the fact that I don't know him means he's completely insignificant. He's not appeared on my radar as someone worthy of paying attention to. I don't even know why we're going to listen to him.
Thank you.
Except to see him crushed and humiliated.
I just saw that it's a video where a bunch of weirdos talk about Christianity and atheism. Oh wait, did you say Michael Jones?
Mike Jones!
Oh, sorry. I mean, one cool guy was talking to some weirdo about Christianity and atheism. I thought, you know, that's what I thought.
Which is better for humanity, Christianity or atheism?
Christianity would be the answer to
Hang on,
that
hang on.
question.
Based Christianity,
Based. Oh yeah, I forgot to
Donkey.
share that on my thingy.
brained atheism.
Donkey brain.
Which is better for humanity, Christianity or atheism? Based Christianity, donkey-brained atheism. Okay, we're starting to pull. Hey, I'm actually not sure about the topic because on IP's channel it said, which is better for humanity, Christianity or secular atheism? So I'm wondering if he's talking about secular that. In other words, secular humanism is a particular view. Like atheism is just this kind of vague general. It's a denial of a position rather than an affirmative position. Where secular humanism is actually a position on ethics. So it said secular atheism in the title. I don't know if the topic is actually secular humanism or atheism, or if they actually called it secular atheism. I don't know. I guess we will find out as we start watching. What?
Secular atheism.
Yeah, I don't know what secular atheism is, as opposed to what?
Religious atheism.
Religious. Hey, people, they should start calling themselves secular atheists as opposed to the new atheists and start saying, because the new atheists are basically a religion. We're the secular atheists.
This is the non-theistic atheism. This is the theocratic atheism and secular atheism. It's fine.
Dr. Andani didn't mention Quran 6:115 during debate. I don't know why he would. Sam could have. But 6:115, you have to read it in context of 114, ladies and gentlemen, but that's the verse that says that no one can change Allah's words. That's one of the
Except me.
verses that says no one can change Allah's words.
Except me.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because almost every Muslim you ever run into believes that Allah's words have been repeatedly changed. And because any one of us can take a book right now and change it. If we can take the Quran right now and make changes to it. So it's kind of a weird claim. Let's see. What?
Somebody's gonna take that serious, man. Farid is gonna say, and look what they said here.
Look
They
at what they're
think-
saying. Anybody.
They think if they change a letter in their own Quran copy, that means they have changed the entire Quran. Little do they know, many people have it memorized.
Oh, hang on. We got the response from Inspiring Philosophy here. Hey, IP, I know you're usually busy and stuff, and you've been doing like 1,000 debates, but you don't even have to post in the chat. If you ever want to show up, just let me know, and you can jump right in here. The debate was Christianity versus secularism. Okay, I'll change that later. I'm not sure why the host wrote secular atheism in the title instead. Secularism. Okay, I'll fix that later. Now we know. Now we know what it is. And when we see IP completely humiliated, we'll know that he lost to secularism. AP, have you seen Metatron's demolition of the empanada who you mentioned in a past stream? God bless y'all and your families. Love y'all, no Diddy.
What is a Metatron? I have no idea who or what Metatron is.
Do you even know what any of this is? I don't know what the Metatron thing is. I don't know what the empanada. I don't know what.
I know the Empanada guy. Empanada. There's this guy called Empanada. He has a YouTube channel, and he's just basically obsessively going after different people who have different opinions. He recently started going after me for some weird reason and started emailing me and harassing me and saying, "Oh, what? Debate me? Are you scared?" And I just sent to him a message and said, "Get in touch with Modern Day Debate." And he was like, "Oh, a real adult can speak for himself." So I just didn't respond to him.
Yeah.
It's just a complete weirdo, and
So you've been
I don't know what
humiliated. Been crushed and humiliated.
and destroyed. I think he was also banned from Twitter.
Hello? This is Naomi.
He's a person
Hi
who got
again,
banned
Naomi.
from Twitter.
This is Ali from 89.8 again.
How does
and
that even
I have some good news for you.
What?
Princess,
You can literally
are
sit
going
there
to
calling
see
for the extermination of
Nutcracker
Jews
at
all
the
day
Lincoln
long.
Center.
No one does
Grandma,
anything to
we
you.
won! We
And
won!
this guy got
So, who are
banned.
you going to take with you?
No, he
My grandma.
actually, in his
Well,
case,
you tell Grandma to
I don't
make
know
sure
what
you
he
have
did.
a
He
great time,
outright
okay?
celebrated.
Now, put your
killing
grandma
of
on the line so we
civilians
can get her
and
those
something
tickets
like
for
that,
you.
and he was
Okay,
banned.
Grandma!
Let's see. Does Dr. Andani believe Jews regard Ezra as the son of God? I do not know what he believes. That'd be a good question for a Q&A when he's in a debate. Any news on why Hamas whipping feet of guys? The only things I heard as I was paying attention to the chat yesterday was people, or in the comments, I forget where, but people who are familiar with the same thing in Iran. So yes, that's something you do to someone without causing any permanent damage, even though it's extremely painful. And then if they keep you a while, it's hard to prove that they did anything wrong. They go, what? Prove it! Prove it! We tortured you. Prove it! That, or it's some weird fetish thing. I'm a bit confused about AP's appearance. Oh, there's lots to be confused about with AP.
Why would you be confused about my appearance?
Yeah, this is bling. Everyone's got their. What that guy called it the other day? Drip. What
Yeah.
that guy called it. Is that a real thing? They call it drip.
That's
how
new
you-
language.
That's our
Drip,
fresh
yes,
gear.
born.
When I was young, we called it our fresh gear.
JTF dispatch to all officers.
Now we call it drip.
Cable satellite imagery is showing unusual
drip,
heat
drip,
boom at
drip,
the
drop,
Sarah
keep
quarantine
dripping.
zone on West 36th.
Best argument against naturalism
Lab
to
techs think it's
humiliate
contagion of the
naturalists.
virus.
I would say the
Requesting
evolutionary
hazmat team
argument
for
against
scans of the area.
naturalism. You can check that in one of my recent
Warning.
videos.
You are now entering a
Dakota
contaminated
Duck,
area.
when I said that he got banned for celebrating killing civilians, I
Exiting
didn't mean
the
Metatron. I
contaminated
don't know what
area.
Metatron is. I meant Bad Empanada.
Oh, Bad Empanada. I've seen that name before. I wasn't sure about Empanada. So far, there are 322 votes in. Which is better for humanity, Christianity, or atheism-based Christianity? 88%. Donkey-brained atheism? 12%. The people have spoken. Notice, when it comes to Christianity versus atheism, the victory is way more landslide than any political election that you see. Political elections are very, very close. Christianity versus atheism is not so close.
But the
All right, you ready to jump into this video?
Now, sometimes they want to hold on to their
Wanna
shit
see,
at any cost.
IP's pretty,
Might even try to kill you.
IP goes around.
Yeah, I've
IP
seen
goes
that.
around running
In
his
that case,
mouth.
measure up the biggest guy they
so
got
smart.
and
I'm
shoot
so
him in the
smart.
head.
Look at my videos. I've read 5,700 sources that you haven't read, and now we'll watch him be humiliated. Now with the top hat, or with the just hat. I think he's saying that with the hat.
yes, I think
Hey man, you need to get one of those big fur hats that they wear. Where's that? Places in Russia?
no, they actually Hasidic Jews wear all black, wear kind of a suit and wear regular black hats, but on Sabbath and other special days, they wear different hats, like bigger ones with the.
I remember it was something in Russia where to identify them as Jews, they had to wear whatever fur that's made out of.
Yeah,
They had to wear that to distinguish themselves, so they started wearing these awesome hats out of it, like they rolled with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and they adopted that. Hasidic Jews just adopted that whole thing as like as regular thing to have a community.
Nice,
It's kind of fun.
All right, so we ready to watch IP get completely crushed and humiliated by some atheist that we've never heard of before? have I heard of that? Where I've heard of Phil Zuckerman, I think they said. That sounds familiar, but I don't know if it just sounds like another name, like Zuckerberg or something like that. I don't know. We'll see. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So I guess I was gonna try and give an introduction to the topic, but they might give an introduction to the topic for us. So let's just see what we got here. Let's see what we got and how based this is, and maybe we change our minds.
Hello and welcome to the debate, Christianity or secularism, which is better for humanity? To debate this topic, I'm joined by Phil Zuckerman and Michael Jones. Phil is a professor of sociology and secular studies, and he's also the author of several books, including Society Without God, Living the Secular Life, and What It Means to Be Moral.
Ah, now that's interesting. So this isn't some random internet dude. This is a professor of sociology who apparently has dedicated his life to studying the impact of various views. And so sociology, this might get interesting. Nice. I think just based on this dude's credentials, I think he has finally met his match. And this guy probably won't be like Daniel the Pikachu going, "Look, we can beg a 4-year-old."
The thing is that after watching Khalil Andani, Dr. Khalil Andani, I'm aware that that academia is not necessarily a big, lots of weird people that present very, very weak and idiotic positions can brag about PhD and all that. So unfortunately, I don't know, like people like Dr. Khalil Andani kind of tarnish the reputation of scholars, of doctors. So I'm not sure what to think now if somebody has credentials like this.
Yeah, this is kind of rough. It is kind of rough that you can have people with all sorts of credentials. I mean, it was just pointed out that, like, Daniel Hakikachu. I mean, Daniel Hakikachu, Harvard grad, he's bragging about his degrees and stuff. And
Hard contact at
at the end of the day, what's he
1:38:07.
doing? He's using it to
Agents on
defend
site
sex
requesting
before-year-olds.
immediate backup.
Super impressive, super impressive. And then what do we see at all these universities daily now? We have to destroy the Jews. That's what you're
Warning. Hostile forces approaching.
College nowadays. Okay, I changed my mind. This guy being a professor of sociology and having written multiple books on why secularism is so much better than religion. I take it back. We're gonna have to actually look at his arguments, because I'm not just gonna take his word for it.
Did you see what Donald Trump said about college campuses? We're going to destroy anti-Semitism in college campuses, and all those who don't comply.
I'm gonna take, look, I'm a problem solver. I'm gonna take all the people who are eating the dogs, who are eating the cats. I'm gonna say, no, don't eat the dogs, don't eat the cats, eat those protesters. That's gonna solve the problem.
Warning. Hostile
The people are
forces
gonna eat the
approaching.
protest. The people who eat the dogs are gonna eat the protesters. Then we're gonna get rid of the people who are eating the dogs. Problem solved, all of them, all at once. This is my big brain. Oh. Man, did you see? Man, I saw some clips on Twitter of the MMA, the UFC matches last night. John Jones won everything and went and handed his belt to Donald Trump. Man, it's wild out there. All right now we've got a sociology professor.
Of secularism. Michael, on the other hand, is a Christian apologetic who has a master in philosophy from the University of Arizona.
Hold on.
Moreover, he also
Hold up, did he flash the other guy's book at him? As in, hey, I've read your book? Hang on, what did he just do there? Where did it go? There we go. I want to see if
He's
he
also
flashed
the
that
author
dude's
of
book.
several books, including Society Without God,
Society
Living the
Without God,
Secular Life, and
Living
What
the
It Means to Be Moral. Bill will be arguing in favor of secularism. Michael, on the other hand, is a Christian apologist.
That's what he did. He held up the... Dude, you guys have no idea how intimidating that would be in a debate. You've got this guy right here. You've got Mike Jones. Haha, read your books. Starting at the beginning. Do you know how intimidating that is, AP?
We're short-staffed as it
You're a
is. We
social.
can't
I'm going to
with
stump
another
him with my
control.
arguments. I know all your arguments. I read all your stuff.
That's
And
very-
not only did I read all this stuff you said in your books, I went to the Works Cited and I read all those too. That's what this dude does, man. That's what he does. That's what he. See, guys, right here, you're thinking, oh, okay, it's not a really big deal. This is how he crushed Daniel Hikikachu. All the stuff that Daniel Hikikachu had been saying and so on. IP went and read all of that stuff and then used it against him. So anyway, interesting stuff.
This guy's a
Who
monster.
has
He's
a
a
master
machine.
in philosophy
Glad he's on our
from
side.
University of
He'd be a
Arizona.
freaking nightmare. Today.
Moreover, he also runs the YouTube channel Inspiring Philosophy with over 400,000
Hey, I know
subscribers.
that channel.
And Michael will be arguing in favor of Christianity. And we will start off with you, Michael, for your opening statement. Take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to discuss this with Professor Zuckerman.
All right, what should we do? Should we? I don't know how long. Should we just watch the whole opening? No, we'll just do like we normally do. I will try to not interrupt. I will try to interrupt as little as possible for their openings here, so we can actually. What will we do? We'll interrupt when they say
I think this was
something.
already enough, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah, we got the big picture. We already know the answer. All right, let's just see what happens.
Something I've been looking forward to for a long time, even before the offer was made. So I'm really happy to be here. Although there's a lot we disagree on, I have a lot of respect for Professor Zuckerman. We have a good conversation, and I enjoy reading some of his books, even though, again, there's a lot we disagree on. So, which is better for humanity, secularism or Christianity? I'll go through these slides here. I will argue the data shows the answer is clearly Christianity. However, I first want to point out I will not be arguing that if we all became atheists, that society would collapse tomorrow, or that we would experience immediate moral decay.
We would.
I will only be arguing that Christianity creates more optimal societies that can endure and generate progress.
That's true.
Again, the debate is about which is better for humanity. Demonstrating that Christianity is better does not mean other types of societies cannot flourish or endure. I would just argue they do so in a less optimal way. Now, by Christian societies, I mean societies that are based on Christian values, and the majority of the population identifies as Christian, regardless of governmental laws. And by secular societies,
By Christian societies, I mean societies that are based on Christian principles.
I mean societies that are based on secular values, and the majority of the people identify as secular atheists. And I want to be clear, I'm not arguing for theocracy or any type of government. This is about the nature of different societies, not governments. We can talk about this later, but experts like Edward Grant, Tom Holland, Alan Ryan note Christianity led to the idea of the separation of church and state. So Christian societies do not necessarily result in some form of theocracy. In fact, I will bring up research that shows Christianity is positively associated with democracy and less authoritarianism. And one more thing, I want to acknowledge Professor Zuckerman is not one to argue religion has no benefits, but he's also argued secularism is a better system for humanity. One reason he's given in interviews is because most religious individuals are good because of obedience, whereas secular people are mainly motivated by compassion and empathy. But this is an oversimplification. Secularists can be motivated by obedience as well, such as obedience to the state, peers, workplace superiors, parents, or other guardians. It is not the case that secularists are necessarily mainly motivated by virtues, and that religious people only have obedience as their main motivation. Second, it should be clear that religious individuals can also be motivated by empathy and compassion. Paul said in Ephesians, "For by grace you have been saved, through faith. This is not your own doing, it is a gift of God, not a result of works, so that no one can boast." In other words, Christians do not have to do good works for fear of punishment or to earn salvation. It is a gift of God, and we are called to do good, simply because it is the right thing to do. We love because Christ first loved us. We don't have to love because Christ will punish us if we don't. Third, if religious morality was only about obedience, we would not have missionary activity. Not all Christians are called to be missionaries or dedicate their lives to charity. One can live an ethical life without becoming a great saint or ever doing charity work. But Christian missionaries have been crucial for building a better world. Numerous studies, which I have on slide 7, show this, and have shown that Christians and their religious motives have helped create this. They've led to things like higher literacy rates, more education, better hygiene habits, medical care, economic progress, freedom, etc., etc. And this was not only accomplished in historical white regions, but in places around the world. None of this was required in order to be obedient to God's law. Christians went out of their ways to do these things because of their empathy and compassion. In fact, from all these studies, it is hard to deny that Christians have not made the world a much better place. in ways that secular humanists have not. Now, one may say that secular humanist cultures are relatively new and so haven't had enough time to generate the same amount of positive change. That could be true, but research pushes back on this. Numerous studies show that religiosity is associated with more charitable giving to religious and secular organizations. On slide 11, a systematic review says, our systematic literature review, covering 77 studies, reveals that religion, measured as group affiliation, values, beliefs, and the importance of faith to the believer, as well as religious service attendance and private prayer, most often positively relates with giving to outgroup and secular organizations. Another study on slide 12 says looked at 53 total nations and found that frequent churchgoers are more active in volunteer work and that a devout national context has an additional positive effect. So when a nation is religiously Christian, volunteer work is increased across the board. Religious citizens also volunteer more for secular organizations. But when a nation secularizes, religious individuals still volunteer at high rates, but secular individuals tend to volunteer less. They even say if secularization is an ongoing process in rich post-industrial societies, we expect declining levels of volunteering due to composition and context effects.
Yes.
Now, to be...
Well, you keep saying yes. You're agreeing with that?
I recently read a study on this, on charity in society in America and in different societies in different countries. I forgot which countries were involved, but primarily focusing on America. It was analyzing which religious group or non-religious group mostly contributes to charities, and Jews and a certain Christian group were the highest in terms of per capita people contributing to charity.
I think you mean Muslims. Well.
And agnostics and atheists and those who don't identify with a certain religion were very low compared to religious people, for example, which is quite interesting.
Well, here's the thing, AP and IP, you guys are talking about various academic studies. My experience with atheist memes shows that when there are problems in society, Christians just pray, while atheists do science. So atheists, they do science. So the Christian in the 1800s just sitting there praying about problems. Meanwhile, the atheist is in his lab with equations and stuff like that on the chalkboard. And then, like later in the 20th century, the Christian is still just sitting beside his bed praying. Meanwhile, the atheist is in a way cooler lab filled with test tubes and stuff doing all his research. And then in the 21st century, the Christian is still just sitting there praying and doing nothing while the atheist is now heading to Mars. And
exactly.
That's what I've seen. See, so all these atheist memes completely refute all your academic research articles.
Okay, Agent, you're looking for any.
Okay, there was one research which said that I made some notes on this. 92% of Protestants, 91% of Catholics, 91% of Jews, 89% of other religions give to charity.
Not to make a whole thing out of it, but if you don't find some unmutated virus that can use as a comp, we may as well give up any hope of creating a vaccine. So,
have to get back to
no
that.
pressure.
But yeah, that is the general. Those are general findings. It's quite fun.
I'm just confused because if it's possible to be racist against Islam as an ideology, could your comments about atheism be interpreted as racist against atheism?
Yes.
Everyone be sure this comes up at the next election.
Clear secularists do give money to charities and volunteer time, but not at the level Christians do. Christianity has been one of the greatest institutions for wealth transfer from the rich to the poor in the history of humanity, and this is often accomplished through charity work. And as noted, numerous studies show that Christianity has made the world a much better place through mission. As the social scientist Arthur Brooks says, the difference in charity between secular and religious people are dramatic. Religious people are 25% points more likely than secularists to donate money, and 23 points more likely to volunteer time. And consistent with the findings of other writers, these data show that practicing a religion is more important than the actual religion itself in predicting charitable behavior. Now, you may think that Christians are only doing this out of obedience to God, but at least we're doing more. One may say secularists have better motives, but the fact remains, what is actually happening
Warning.
in reality?
Temperature rising.
Christians tend to do more
Elevated
charity.
levels of carbon dioxide.
So the data
detected.
indicate that Christianity leads to more
Sounds like there's
charity
a
work.
fire in the building.
I do want to point out just
I'll start
because
feeding Isaac the structural blueprints in case you need them.
he's going into academic
Calculating route
studies.
to
I just
emergency
want to give
fire
you
suppression system
first
controls.
person, like I'm not talking about anyone else on the planet except me, although I guess I suppose there are other people like this. When I became a Christian, my view of what human beings are became different. It changed. You are a person who is created in the image of God. That changes my view. That changed my view of your significance in the universe. So that was one. Two, as far as moral laws, which before that, and atheists can have a bunch of different views on this. Mr. Zuckerman here probably has a completely different view from the one I had. But I viewed it as like along the lines of brainwashing by society and so on. And so when I changed my beliefs, my view of what these rules are changed as well. And so do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Okay, that becomes something that I believe is from. In other words, it's not, oh, I have to go out and obey God so I don't go to hell. It's okay, the rule is real. It's not something someone just made up and worked in a society. It actually has a kind of there's something authoritative. It's beyond us. So this, in other words, this isn't simply, oh, I'm going to obey God. It's real. It's something real, not something that a person made up. Because if a person makes something up, I think, why am I going to listen to that person? Why is that person's belief superior to mine or something like that? If something comes from a source that created us, that's in a different category. And so that, in other words, the things that I do are massively different from the things I used to do. And when it is not just, oh, now I'm going to be obedient, that certainly plays a role in it, but there's a bunch of other things that are involved.
And my
Like
wife
what you
said,
view other
hands
human
in
beings
that.
as,
Is that
how you
something you
view
care? Oh my God,
ethical
tell me you don't
rules and
love
so
this
on.
watch.
What
I
is the
dare
source
you.
of them? Do you actually have
I'm
a
so
moral
sorry.
obligation
My
to follow
credit-
them, or is it just, something you've been taught to do or something like that? Anyway, there's a lot in there. And so if this guy, Mr. Zuckerman's position is going to be people just, Christians just go, no, we have to because we'll go to hell. He sounds stupid.
Inside a nation and outside its borders, and this in turn led to more economic progress, medical care, freedom, democracy, literacy, etc. The nation secularized, this will likely decrease, which I think we can all agree is not a good thing. On this issue, Christian societies clearly outperform secular societies. As one famous sociologist, Phil Zuckerman, said in his book, religiously involved individuals also exhibit greater manifestations of prosociality than do those who are not religiously involved. Several studies have found that religious people tend to be more charitable, more generous, and more likely to volunteer and donate blood than their secular peers are. Furthermore, a proliferation of religious devotion, faith in God, and reliance on the Bible has historically been a determining factor in establishing schools for children, creating universities, building hospitals for the sick, and homes for the homeless, taking care of orphans and the elderly, resisting oppression, establishing law and order, and developing democracy.
Kind of funny. He's quoting the dude's book too. So he makes his claims, cites his studies, and then quotes the dude's book to show that the dude says the exact same thing. So, anyways,
Christianity clearly generates far more prosociality than does secularism. The next issue I want to focus on is the rise of nationalism and right-wing authoritarianism. With the recent rise of Christian nationalism, many people are worried about the effects of Christianity. But they might be surprised to find out that research has found that Christian nationalism seems to be more motivating among the least churched individuals on the right. A study from 2021 found that among politically right individuals, Christian nationalism was found among the least religious or churched. To quote, "We find no evidence that Christian nationalism mobilized church-based support in the election. This is demonstrated by the fact that in our results, Christian nationalism is only strongly associated with Trump support for voters who do not attend religious services. Among religious attenders, the effect of Christian nationalism on Trump voters is not only weak, it is also not statistically different from zero. White nationalist groups in the United States explicitly use Christian nationalist rhetoric, but those who identify with such movements tend not to be strongly involved in mainstream
charity
Christian
donation
congregations.
stations,
wow,
tip jars in the cafe.
That's interesting
Any
stuff.
place you can think
That's
of that might
interesting
involve
stuff.
cash.
So, how many times did we hear warnings about Christian nationalism, and Christian nationalism is responsible, and it's because of Christians and so on, and these things are happening. And he's showing that the Christian nationalism is primarily influential among Christians who aren't even really going to church and stuff. There's a bunch of on Twitter and stuff, groypers and stuff. Oh, we're gonna get our Christian nation and we're gonna kick out everyone else. And so, apparently, the more devoutly Christian you are, the less inclined you are to be calling for a Christian-only nation and expelling everyone else. Interesting.
That is very, very funny. It's kind of it's very funny. It confirms this whole idea that these extreme ideas are just are ways for certain people who don't really do much for the religious beliefs that they prefer to hold. It's just a way for them to channel their to overcompensate for their lack of actual faith and worship and action and all that. It's pretty pathetic.
Object test negative.
And so
for
it's
viral
more along the
contamination.
lines of people who have some agenda, like the gropers. We want to get rid of Jews and pretty much everyone else who isn't a white Catholic. That's the gropers. In other words, it's more like these guys are using a religion as a tool to get what they actually want, rather than they're motivated by their religious convictions. It's more they're motivated by something else, and they use religion in order to as a tool to get what they want. We want to group.
Similar results were found in Europe, for example.
The gropers.
One study found that although populist
The gropers are going for the Jews.
right parties tend to advertise themselves as defending Christian identity and values.
Wait a minute, they call themselves groypers. Do they say like we're groyping them or something like? Do they say that, or is that they just call themselves groypers and they all use it?
I think it's some stupid thing based on a frog meme.
Yeah, but what's it got to do with a frog meme? I don't know what. We're too old. We haven't been paying attention enough. You know more than I do. But I'm just wondering if it's like, yes, oh man, Nick Fuentes just totally groiped that dude. I'm wondering if they use that as a term. Like, if
I actually sat down and
because
tried
if it's
to find
groiper, if it's groiper, that sounds like someone who groips, a person who groips. And so I don't know what groiping is, but it means that groip is an action, and that you could therefore be said to groip someone. Ha! I just groiped the crap out of that dude. But I don't know what that would mean. What's that?
I actually sat down one day and tried to find out what in the world that groiper term and name is supposed to mean and why they are using that. And
sounds like a
in the
fish
end,
to me.
In the end, nothing made sense. It's like I actually sat down and tried to research, and I couldn't get to any proper conclusion. Nothing made sense in the end, and that just seems very indicative of what kind of a movement these people are representing.
We should start using it. Like, oh, hey, remember when Nick Fuentes entered the conversation and said, it's groiping time, and then groiped all over the Jews?
Yeah.
It sounds
The funny
stupid.
thing is-
it sounds stupid.
Look here, I'm looking at Wiktionary groiper right now, and it says groiper, internet slang, a large green cartoon toad with a strange mischievous expression similar to Pepe the Frog, and second meaning is alternative letter case form of groiper, member of certain political groups, and then it links to the article about the gropers, and then it
Object test
explains that
negative for viral contamination.
possibly it is a common hypothesis seems to be a blend of goy, Gentile, and groper, sexual assault, probably in reference to the illustration's associations with the political group.
That's the one that actually makes the most sense. They're gropers, but they're obsessed with Jews and how a Jew, how the Talmud, what the Talmud says about us.
But so they're just
Object
it
test
seems like they're a bunch of
negative for viral
proud
contamination.
Gentile sexual
Gropers.
assault perpetrators.
The
Echo
Jews call
available
us
for
the
playback
goy,
nearby.
but we go around grabbing women on the bottoms on the subway because we're gropers. We
don't care about consent. Consent is a Jewish conspiracy. We just grope when we want it.
Oh boy. Here we go.
Christian nationalism mobilized church-based support in the election. This is demonstrated by the fact that in our results tend not to be strongly involved in mainstream Christian congregations. Similar results were found in Europe, for example. One study found that although populist radical right parties tend to advertise themselves as defending Christian identity and values, they don't attract many religious voters. PRR parties tend to take pains to show that they are defenders of Christian identity and values, and yet they do not widely attract religious Christian voters. Our analysis confirms this paradox. As religiosity increases, the odds of voting for a populist radical right party instead of a mainstream right party decline.
Alert. Potential hostiles approaching.
Guys, this is, I don't want to keep interrupting, but I just want to emphasize that this is important because we see two things always. One, we have the atheist memes that are, religious people just sit around and do nothing. They just sit around and do nothing except pray. But atheists actually go out and do stuff. Okay, that may make perfect sense to you in a meme. It's just not. It's not reality. We have 2,000 years to show that is complete idiotic nonsense. We have endless studies to show that is idiotic nonsense. And then here, over and over again, during the election, leading up to the election, we heard that the great threat was Christian nationalists who are trying to support Trump to get a Christian nation and so on. And so the real threat is Christianity and people taking it seriously. And IP pointed out, actually, the research shows that it actually appeals to people who aren't taking Christianity very seriously. In other words, nominal Christians. They're the people who, yes, we will unite around this and get rid of everyone we don't like. Jesus.
20, I have additional research, which found that anti-religious sentiment has been found to be more distressing to individuals who do not attend a regular church service. Unchurched Christian nationalists are more likely to favor an authoritarian figure using populist appeals. In fact, Christian religiosity tends to aid in making one less likely to vote for a far-right radical party. One may ask why this is the case, but the logic actually isn't complicated. When individuals on the right leave traditional Christian religion,
Don't you know
like a cheap
that
progress.
150% of all wars in human history are because
Like
of
I said,
religion?
no
Liar! It's 10,000% of wars. Guys, in other words, already, it's like, here's the thing. When I'm talking about like the memes and we've got these memes, and then you have actual research. You know, it's easy to make fun of the memes because it's just something someone makes and puts on Twitter. But those memes are basically the level of argumentation you saw in like Dawkins' God Delusion and Sam Harris's End of Faith and stuff. It's basically them thinking, here's what religion is in our minds. Now let's write a book about why that's what religion is. And meanwhile, research shows
Object test negative for viral contamination.
for a far-right radical party. One may ask why this is the case, but the logic actually isn't complicated. When individuals on the right leave traditional Christian religiosity behind, they tend to keep a lot of the symbols, cultural heritage, and then reinterpret them in political ways, therefore creating political religions that have repurposed Christian symbols. As Philip Gorski said, loose from its religious moorings, religious nationalism floats free of the ethical tether of Christian ethics and drifts even further in the direction of secular messianism and political authoritarianism. Roger Brubaker said, "It is precisely the ongoing erosion of Christianity as doctrine, organization, and ritual that makes it easy to invoke Christianity as a cultural and civilizational identity, characterized by punitively shared values that have little or nothing to do with religious belief and practice." On slide 23, we see similar results with attitudes towards immigration. One study looked at acceptance of refugees at the individual, regional, and national level. Found on the individual level that Christians, with the exception of Catholic Christians, and the unaffiliated, are relatively similar in their policy preference regarding the admittance of refugees. Religious service attendance is associated with more generous policy preferences. But at national and regional levels, percent unaffiliated is associated with more restrictive preferences. 2017 study looked at anti-Muslim sentiment in Western Europe from before the European immigration issue, and found that, although more secularized countries are on average more tolerant towards Muslims and Islam, the strongest anti-Muslim attitudes are nonetheless found among the non-religious in these countries. Additional studies have found that greater religiosity was linked to support for inclusive immigration policy.
Alert.
What's that?
Hostiles detected
Was it supposed to be a
nearby.
positive point for?
Yep, that was supposed to be a point, and I guess that means we're non-religious. That makes sense for you, but apparently I'm non-religious. So saying like the most hostile towards Islam and so on would be a non-religious in a society. I have to say that's. I mean, I'm trying to think of what in my experience would come from that, because there are definitely Christians, and there are atheists, and there are Hindus, and there are Jews, and there are all kinds of people who have a problem with Islam. I'm trying to think of a different. I'm trying to think like at church. At church there's not a lot of complaining. I mean, matter of fact, I don't think in my church I've ever heard anyone complaining about Islam. So I don't know. Maybe it's more of a being like seriously anti-Islam is more of a kind of a fringe thing in Christianity.
The funny thing is, I can think of Germany, and in Germany, for example, the religious population, the religious Christian populace, was primarily the one that kind of did this whole thing, like open borders and invite them in, and just make peace and so on and stuff like that. Whereas the population that was generally known to be non-religious, less religious, were the ones who famously came out and started marching in the streets against Muslim immigration.
Hostiles detected nearby.
That is something that did indeed happen in Germany. For example, there was this big movement of it was it is still around, just not as big as it used to. Pegida, which was patriotic Europeans against the Islamization of Occident, or something like that.
It almost sounds like something that should mean pedophile or something, though. So get a better word.
Yeah, but those people were mostly led by people who lived in places that were primarily known to be non-religious, that were Eastern Germany, remnants of communist rule and things like that. Not very much Christians. They were marching against the Christian Democratic Party, for example, which was opening the borders more and more to Muslims. It's kind of an interesting contrast to see. It seems a little bit different on the surface when you look at it in America.
I don't either. It's interesting because, as has been pointed out for many times, for 14 centuries, Christians in Europe understood we do not let Islam take over. That was Catholics, that was Protestants, that was everyone. They all understood we do not let Islam take over. That doesn't work very well. And then in the 20th century, end of the 20th century, even more so after 9/11, then it became, hey, Europe said we need to bring in as many Muslims as possible, and that's the best thing we can do. I'm wondering if, because I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, hey, there's something about this that doesn't make sense. How do Christians understand for 14 centuries have that basic level of common sense? You do not let Islam take over, and now you're pointing out that. I mean, he's pointing out that you have nominal Christians that support certain ideas and so on, but he's saying that serious Christians tend to have a more favorable view of Muslims and so on. And I'm thinking about why that might be the case more recently, when again 14th century Christians say you're not coming here to take over. Now all of a sudden, we can't wait for you to take over. Please beat us. Please just destroy us. I'm wondering if because more recently, in recent decades, you have Christianity and alternatives Christianity and things attacking Christianity, and Christians are attacked for their past constantly, right? Like, hey, you Christians, look at how you've been for 14 centuries. You had the Crusades, you had all these things, and so on. And then when we hear about Muslims, we're thinking of the past. And then there were those times when we're fighting wars and Catholics killing Protestants and Protestants killing Catholics and so on. Maybe there's a desire to kind of overcompensate by saying,
Not to beat a
yes,
dead
bring
horse,
it as many
Agent,
as
but I
possible.
need those
We want to
bills
show you
intact.
how open and
room
tolerant we
temperature,
are.
no crispy
But
edges.
like going
Crispy
overboard, because there are
means
things in
off
Christianity that
comes
would,
the
like,
progress.
okay, even those Muslims are created
Try not
in
to
the
get
image of God.
yourself killed in the process.
And if there are Muslims there who are
Crispy
suffering,
aren't much use to us
then we need to try and help them if we can. That would actually be connected to things that he was saying
Keep
about
your eyes peeled, Agent. We just got a
charity
report from
and trying,
JTF observers
you know,
outside
charity.
the
You're trying to
building.
help others.
More cleaners arrived while you were
But
busy upstairs.
people can also take advantage of that.
Give them
It's
a
just like
wide
charity,
berth.
right? It's just like
I
you
know
could
I've
give
said
to
this
you could give to
before,
a
but I
poor
need those
person,
bills in
but
mint
when people know that you give to a
condition,
poor
so to
person,
speak.
there are people who will take advantage of that, who aren't poor, who will try to take advantage of that, right? Who will try to take advantage of you. And so Islam might be a system that says, okay, there are Christians who are interested in helping the oppressed. They're taught to help the oppressed. Therefore, let's portray ourselves as the most oppressed and the terrible victims of Islamophobia and bigotry and racism. And this will be appealing to European Christians who will have our backs. Something along those lines.
This is so weird. Oh, I was trying to find a research on Germany and attitudes on this one. The funny thing is that one research that I'm looking at, which was directly published organized by the German government, showed that the majority, consistently over 50% over the last 2 decades in Germany, have always held that Islam is a threat to society, and also have explicitly disagreed with the statement Islam belongs in Europe. I don't understand one thing. If more than 50% of the population thinks like that, how do you end up consistently importing more and more and more and more of Islam and protecting it?
That's pretty much true everywhere in Europe. Everywhere you go in Europe, you look at what the people want, and the people are saying, no, Islam is bad, we want less of it, and the politicians keep imposing more and more of it on them. And so, yeah, there is definitely something that's completely out of whack in Europe.
Funny.
Oh, AP thinks it's funny that your society is crumbling, Europe. AP, you heard it here. It's something for us to laugh at. Ha ha, Europe. Ha ha. In your face. They look at me. You can't even stop laughing as I'm pointing out that he thinks it's a giant joke.
It's hilarious.
So it seems that traditional Christianity works as a suppressor of political religiosity. Without it, this will increase as secularization increases, and this leads to authoritarian ideologies and the erosion of freedom and civil liberties. This should not be surprising, because as on slide 26, we see that research has found that Christianity is associated with citizen empowerment, voice and accountability, democratic values, human rights, etc., lower levels of corruption, these kinds of things. Humans tend to be naturally religious, even though a small minority can refrain from this. Removing Christianity means man's natural religious inclinations are harnessed elsewhere. In an increasingly secularizing world, they will be manifested into political religion, which often result in more authoritarianism, erosion of rights, and other things. So keeping a society Christian seems to be better long term. Not only will we see more charity work, which results in multiple positive effects, but we'll also have more freedom and less political.
Miss HGL said, I would never hold the past against Christians. They have changed, but Islam has not reached that changing point yet. This is actually a problematic view, this HGL.
Yep.
And I find it many times among atheists. Will say, oh yeah, Christianity was violent for a long time, but then it had a Reformation, and the Reformation made it peaceful and more enlightened. And so the same thing, it hasn't happened in Islam yet. And the idea is that this sort of thing is going to happen. It could happen in Islam because it happened in Christianity. That is a complete, massive misunderstanding of history. For 3 centuries, never crossed any Christian's mind to go out and shed blood. It didn't happen. The Roman Empire then, the Roman Empire in the 4th century started adopting Christianity. Christianity spread so much. The Roman Empire started adopting Christianity. But now you have the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire saying, oh yeah, and we're Christian now. They did not just stop their Roman Empire way of doing things. Now you ended up with, hey, now we impose this on other people. It hadn't crossed any Christian's mind up until that. As a Christian, you were preaching the gospel. And so Christianity became entwined with a government that is imposing, that believes that above all else in imposing order on everything. And so now you have a Christian Roman Empire hybrid, and then the Roman Empire breaks up and so on. But now you have countries and they have the same idea, and it takes a while and so on. But it takes a while to get away from these ideas of, hey, our job now as the Roman Empire, which is Christian, is to impose Roman Empire Christianity on the people. It takes a while to get away from that view. And so what you find is Christians looking back at the past going, hey, were we really supposed to be going out subjugating people as if we have a kingdom when Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world? Are we supposed to be doing that? So as a Christian, you can look back and say, there are lots of things that Christians did that we were not supposed to do according to Christianity. Jesus is your standard. So you have a means for judging Christians of the past and saying, these guys were wrong. The difference is that in Islam, you look back and say, hey, were we right in trying to conquer the world and subjugate people in the name of Allah? No, you're not wrong. That is exactly what Muhammad taught. And so if you have, what do you call it? Christians change, but Islam has not reached that changing point yet. What do you mean by changing point? You mean a time when Islam says, hey, we're peaceful now? That would not be Islam, because you would be disobeying one of the core messages of Islam, which is you have to violently subjugate the world.
Now it's a no man's land full of people willing to take their chances with the virus to get away
Islam
from
is the religion of everybody.
Streets. And what happens behind those walls?
Until what Quran says, until religion is all for Allah.
Yep.
And Muhammad said, I've been shown the east of the east and the west of the west, and I've seen the authority of Islam ruled over all that I saw. This is a prophecy. Islam is going to conquer the world. It is a goal. Prophecies we read about Jews hiding behind trees and so on. This is a goal. They're aiming towards these things. You can't say, now we're just going to reach a point where we don't want to do this to Jews eventually. Well, then you wouldn't be following Muhammad. In what sense would it be Islam if Islam, the definition of Islam in a nutshell is, it's the religion. Islam means submission. In its religious context, it means submission to Allah. But it's not just submitting to Allah. It's how you submit to Allah. It tells you how you go about submitting yourself to Allah. And how do you go about submitting yourself to Allah? By mindlessly and unquestioningly obeying everything Muhammad says. That's not me saying that. That's Surah 4 verse 165. That's Surah 4 verse 65. If you do not unquestioningly obey and believe everything Muhammad says, you are not a true Muslim. So when you're saying, if you want to say, hey, let's get away from following the teachings of Muhammad and just live in peace with everyone, in what sense would that be Islam? What? It'd be Islam in name only. Whereas a Christian who doesn't want to subjugate the world, he's not supposed to subjugate the world. So, anyway, I think this is kind of it's a problem, because lots of people, they're unfamiliar with history. They're unfamiliar with what Christianity teaches. They don't know what Islam teaches. They just say, oh, people in the past were violent. People now tend to be more peaceful. And so Christians, they change, so Muslims can change too. If Christians deviate from the teachings of Christ, fellow Christians can always call them back to obedience to the teachings of Christ. It's reversed in Islam. It's, if Muslims start becoming peaceful, there will always be Muslims who say, what are you doing? You're in disobedience. And you look at the kind of Islam that is spreading most rapidly, it's not a peaceful Islam. It's a Salafi type, aggressive. This is what it is. Why? Because they're the ones who can point to their text and show this is what they're supposed to be doing.
That's what they do. In Christianity, wherever you want to approach it, if you want to go to the beginnings of the unification of Christianity in the West, the Frank. I'm thinking of Kenneth and Frank.
Everything is about the Frank, the Frankist, and Frank started by Anne Frank.
The Frank, the Franks. So the empire of the Franks it wasn't meant to be expansionist as in spreading the religion. It was just meant to unify a culture. And at some point, for example, it started expanding out of necessity. They started converting non-Christian pagans in the north to Christianity, for example, to put an end to the endless raids and so on. You can see in Christian history at certain points, Christian rulers and Christian societies resorting to certain exceptions, such as spreading the religion by force. In Islam, it is quite different. In Islam, that is the norm. It's not the exception. In Islam, you are supposed to do that. In Islam, this is not just a political decision that at some point somebody takes by mistake or out of necessity. In Islam, that is the entire foundation. I've so often cited a source that is an Islamic source, Ibn Khaldun, in his book Muqaddimah. He says very clearly that what separates Islam from other religions in the world, like Judaism and Christianity and so on, is that in Islam, the ruler is supposed to be in charge of both the society and the military, and it is his religious obligation to spread the religion by diplomacy or by force. This is always at the core of politics in Islam. The same is not the case in Christian history, for example. Although, of course, there was violence in Christian history. There were endless wars in Christian history, but it's not meant to be that way religiously. So, Christianity didn't get better because it changed. Didn't get more peaceful because it changed. Islam cannot change and then become peaceful. The core is it has to die. No, Muslims have to leave Islam. They have a responsibility to leave this disgusting religion.
We invite all Muslims to the way of non-Islam.
Religions and authoritarianism. Finally, I want to look at a pretty damning issue for secularism. Secular culture could create high levels of well-being and satisfaction, but it would not be good for humanity if it cannot sustain itself for multiple generations, because it would die out and possibly be replaced by less optimal cultures. So any given culture must be able to sustain itself as part of the case.
Is he bringing up birth rates? What did you just say? I think he's bringing up birth rates. He's saying now that secularism has a problem if it makes it so that it can't sustain itself. This is a point I brought up probably, 10 or 12 years ago in a video about Dawkins, because Dawkins said that the sole purpose of a human being is to propagate a molecule. That it is the sole purpose. And what he's talking about, keep in mind, you can have all sorts of purposes in your mind or your culture or something like that. He's talking about, like, biologically what you are as a thing. Your job is to make copies of DNA. Saying that's your purpose. And so I made a video saying, okay, if our purpose is to make copies of DNA, namely through reproducing, then Islam is the best. It enhances it maximizes, it makes us flourish. Because why? Because if we're just making copies, Muslims are the best at making copies. They have the highest birth rates. And atheists would be the worst. Atheists have the lowest birth rates. And so I basically argue, if you take what you say seriously, that the purpose of a human being is to make copies of a molecule, and this ideology enhances that and helps you fulfill your purpose, and this other ideology crushes and suffocates you from fulfilling your purpose, then according to your definition, keep in mind, I do not believe that our biggest purpose is to make copies of a molecule. That's Dawkins saying that, right? But if you think that is your sole purpose, then you've just destroyed your own position, because your own position is bad for fulfilling your purpose. It looks like Mike Jones is pointing that out because it's become more of an issue in recent years that human birth rates have been dropping as nations secularize. As nations go more secular, their birth rates drop. And then what happens? You bring in people from places that have high birth rates, but then you end up with lots of people from different parts of the world who aren't secular. And therefore, secularism ultimately undermines and destroys itself. I'm guessing that's where he's going. Well, let's see this.
An issue for secularism. Secular culture could create high levels of well-being and satisfaction, but it would not be good for humanity if it cannot sustain itself for multiple generations, because it would die out and possibly be replaced by less optimal cultures. So any given culture must be able to sustain itself as part of the case as to why it's good for humanity. Christian societies have historically been able to do this by producing replacement populations through sustainable birth rates, and later generations can carry on the culture, generate progress. But secularism appears to not be able to do this. The countries that have secularized the most, and who have the most people who have left traditional religion behind, have some of the lowest birth rates of any nation. In fact, as secularism has been exported around the world through the internet and media, all nations' birth rates have decreased. But secular nations are falling below replacement levels. Eric Kaufman notes it is the conservatives and fundamentalists who are producing the most children because of religious tenets about being fruitful and multiplying. So he predicts in a few generations.
What's that?
I wonder what the. I'm pretty sure that IP has already researched this question fully and knows exactly what to say. But I wonder what the impact of advanced medicine and
someday I'll pay you back.
General advancement, human development, and so on. How that impacts birth rates, how much of an impact it has, what kind of a factor it is, because religion makes for higher birth rates, yes, but then higher development also, regardless of religion, lowers the birth rates, and family planning comes in and this lowers the birth rates. But how does it affect each society? How does it influence different religious societies and so on? I'm really curious.
Yeah, it's a complicated network of connections because you're right. Even among Muslims, when they go to a more modern society, their birth rates tend to drop. They will still have Muslims will still have the highest birth rates, even in like the United Kingdom and so on. But it will be lower birth rates than in lots of Muslim areas of the world. And so, because you're right, it's basically as a society modernizes, then people are more educated, which means that people spend more time in the education system, which means that the emphasis for young people is on being educated, and there can be an emphasis on becoming more and more educated. Like, don't we want to be more educated than other people? And so people end up going to college and so on. And then family life kind of gets put to the side. It's like, once I finish high school, then finish college, then get my career aligned, then I'll start worrying about having kids. Meanwhile, in Afghanistan, your Muslim counterpart, who's also 25, so a woman in the West is 25 when she's thinking about having her first kid. Meanwhile, a 25-year-old in Afghanistan is on child number 6 or 7 by that time. So just having more things to do and having other things that are emphasized that are good in society gives you more options other than just your family and so on. But anyway, it's still a reality. It's still a reality that you have places in the world where there's not a lot to do and they just keep having more and more babies. What are you going to do about that when, because of the secularization of your society, you're no longer at the replacement level? So guys, he referred to a replacement level. That's basically 2 parents producing 2 kids. You have a husband and a wife producing 2 kids. That's kind of your bare minimum for sustaining your society. You need about an average of about 2 children per 2 parents. In other words, if you fall below that, if you're 1.8, 1.5, then your population will be declining, and you'll have fewer and fewer people. Eventually, you don't have enough people to enter the workforce to replace the workers who are dying off. Your government is aware of this. Your government is looking at this. Your government sees how many people are being born, and they look and say, we actually have an average of 1.2 per family. In other words, 2 parents are producing an average of 1.2 children. What does your government do? We need to import people, or we're not going to have enough workers to support our culture. And where do they get them? Other places in the world where you still have high birth rates. And so the point here is, if you cannot, secularists, if you cannot figure out a way to get people to have enough babies, then you're going to be replaced. And as of right now, Christianity is the only, serious Christians are the only things that are even close to competing. Muslims have higher birth rates than Christians, but Christians are the only ones who are who would keep things at replacement level. And really, what is it, AP? Was it Romania, Bulgaria? Where was it? There was a country that actually started giving incentives to people for having kids. That's the only secular option I can see, as far as like governments actually rewarding people for having kids. In other words, instead of bringing in people from Pakistan. Instead of saying, hey, we need more people, so let's bring in people from Pakistan, instead saying, hey, let's reward families who are actually producing lots of children through, I don't know, higher tax breaks or something like that. I don't know, but there's got to be a way to emphasize the significance of having children so that you're not replaced by people from Pakistan.
I think it would be useful to implement certain laws, like outlawing fornication, outlawing adultery, punishing these things with death, and so on. This would probably force more people to get married and make more children. Could be a solution to look into.
Yeah. By the way, that is a theory of why certain why religions that are very heavily influenced on we are going to make families that make babies, why those cultures actually flourish more in the world, because they're the ones having kids and passing on their ideas to their kids and so on. But it's sort of this double thing in the sense that I made a video recently about like the new atheists spreading atheism, and if we can just get people to turn away from religion, then we'll get our scientific utopia and so on. What happens? They just start getting crushed by Islam, and part of it is if you have a group of people saying, we have been commanded by Allah Almighty to come in and subjugate you, and He's going to reward us with an eternity of deflowering virgins for our efforts to subjugate the world. Look, people are pretty highly motivated, the ones who take that message seriously. If you take the message of atheism serious, I'm talking about the new atheism, the Richard Dawkins, we need to go out and... You listen, and Richard Dawkins was repeatedly asked by Jordan Peterson, he's asked to justify sort of his preferences and so on, beyond just being preferences. Say, hey, you say that Christianity is better than Islam, eh? So so there's a hierarchy, right? And Dawkins said, yes, there's a hierarchy, right? And Christians get excited because he said Christianity is better than Islam. And Dawkins himself pointed out that's not great praise. Saying that you're better than Islam is not tremendous praise, right? Because he doesn't have a high view of Christianity. He thinks that Christianity is better than Islam. And so we would assume he didn't say that in that particular discussion, but we would assume that an enlightened scientific atheism is way better than either one. Well, what's that mean? He agrees there's a hierarchy, right? Things are better than others. Okay, is this better than this and this better than these? Just from your personal preferences, or is one really, really better than the other? Like objectively, according to certain criteria, better than the others. And all Richard Dawkins would say, well, I prefer. Okay, and here was my message of that video, at the end of that video. If your message is, well, I prefer this to this, and I like this better, because that's what Dawkins keeps saying. I like the sound of cathedrals, and I like this, and I like... Okay, if you're going out saying, I like this, but there's no real truth to it at the bottom, here are my personal preferences, I like this, other people like that, and you've got this other group saying, we're going to crush you in the name of Allah. I'm going to kill you. That group is going to crush you. That group is massively more motivated, more focused, more driven, and they are going to crush you. But that's separate from the idea that as the more atheistic a society becomes, the more secular and atheistic a society becomes, the more the birth rates drop farther and farther below the replacement level, and therefore the more secular you become, the more immigrants you bring in from the Muslim world. That's what you do. And so you're bringing in more people who promote an ideology which is stronger than yours. I'm not saying more true or more correct or more rational or anything else. I'm saying it's stronger in the sense of it motivates people to go out and spread it more than yours. You guys are just like, this is a huge point that Mike is bringing up right now, that what is better for the world, Christianity or secularism? If secularism ultimately causes the collapse of societies, because it lowers birth rates so much that you can't even replace the people, and you bring in more until you completely destroy your own societies by ideologies from other lands, that would kind of be like the worst thing imaginable. Imagine you say, hey, here's a society over here. Is this idea good for the society? But you know that the idea, once the society adopts it, ultimately destroys the society after a couple generations. Is that good for society? Hey, we got this idea. Let's spread this idea on society. What's it going to do? Oh, it's going to destroy the society and have a Okay, well, is that good for how? On what planet is that good for society? That would seem to be like the worst thing imaginable for society, right? Wild stuff.
We live in a society.
We do indeed. All right, I think Mike is wrapping up here. Let's see what happens.
The religious will take over, and the secularists will be in the minority. Similarly, evolutionary biologist Michael Bloom argues religiosity has been selected for its evolutionary advantages because it results in more offspring. On slide 32, this study conducted a multivariable analysis looking at 58 countries and found that secularism, even in small amounts, is associated with population stagnation or even decline absent substantial immigration, whereas highly religious countries have higher fertility rates that promote population growth. Many of the modern secular nations have to rely on immigration to deal with their aging and declining populations. But that means importing people from other cultures that tend to be more religious, who will go on to have more children, and over time increase in population and replace the declining secularists. And also, Kaufman notes that pious children simply assimilate into the secular mainstream. The radical effect of religiosity, of religious fertility, quickly dissipates. So secularism doesn't seem to be something that could
Guys, just that last point real quick. Just wanted you to understand it. If you have religious people, they're having lots of kids, but if those kids become secular, fertility rates drop. Fertility rates drop. So who retains the high fertility rates? The people who take their religion seriously.
For multiple generations. It has to rely on immigration from other cultures to keep its population level sustained. But this opens it up to being taken over by harmful cultures, like Salafi Islam, where rights and freedom will be removed.
I thought you were saying something different when you made that sound.
What?
Who retains high fertility rates?
That's what I do.
No, I get it.
That's what I do. Weirdo. What did he just say? Did he just call Salafi Islam problem? Because that would be pretty racist.
That's what
there are multiple generations. It has to rely on immigration from other cultures to keep its population level sustained. But this opens it up to being taken over by harmful cultures, like Salafi Islam, where rights and freedom will be removed, especially for women. Even if it is eventually replaced by a more optimal culture like Christianity, the point is still that secularism is unsustainable. It cannot produce long-lasting progress, well-being, if it slowly diminishes and is replaced by something else. Christianity, on the other hand, is able to produce sustainable cultures that endure and have historically led to a ton of human progress, thereby making the world a better place. Secularism cannot do this and therefore is not as good as Christianity has been. Now there are many other variables we could look at. I don't have time to cover in this opening statement, but in terms of charity work, pro-sociality, generating progress, keeping authoritarianism at bay, Christianity clearly has much better aspects than secularism.
Hey, it worked.
Secular societies also do not provide and so cannot generate progress. They cannot endure. Because of all these factors, I would say Christianity is clearly better for humanity, and I will yield the rest of my time.
Secularism can't be good because it just destroys you.
And I don't even need more time. I'm done.
I don't even need more time. I now rest my airtight case. Wow, wow, wow.
That is pretty funny.
Dude, it is weird in the sense that we've talked repeatedly about, okay, if atheism were true, what would make sense? I think you'd say, okay, if atheism were true, what people believe wouldn't make a terrible difference as far as your belief in like an afterlife or something like that, unless it's causing you to misbehave or cause problems in society in various ways. Why would you as an atheist care if this Christian over here believes this or if this Muslim believes this about paradise, unless it's causing him to like wage jihad on you or subjugate you or something like this? I guess you could say, well, you know, given other things that happen in society, then we should be concerned about, especially if you believe in this, you know, what compelled the new atheists to rise to popularity, which is religion is going to destroy society unless we get everyone to abandon religion, then it will save society and so on. But I mean, think about this: if atheists are genuinely the super rational, evidence-based people, guys, we have mountains of evidence saying that if the more people adopt your view, the more it's going to destroy your society, and you'll be replaced by Salafi Islam. We have endless amounts of evidence that show this. It's happening right in front of your faces. Go to London and look around at what's happening. We have endless trunks of evidence to show what is happening. You have very poorly planned out your takeover of the world and rescuing the world. You didn't get your scientific utopia. You apparently have no idea what you do. I'm not even saying it can't be done. I'm just saying you don't know how to do it yet, and therefore you should probably not be implementing a plan when you have no clue what you're doing. That's the reality, and the question is, like, how does Richard Dawkins not get this? How does someone as smart as Richard Dawkins and these other high-level atheists? To be fair, you do have tons of atheists who've caught on and kind of dialed it back. This isn't going the way we thought it would. But you still have the sort of, some of the new atheists who are still just doing the exact same thing as 20 years ago, and we have a lot of new evidence in. Like, we've tried your ideas for 20 years. It has not worked out in any good way. Why are you still clinging to it? Why are you still saying, we need more of this that destroys society? How are you not seeing this? You have the evidence, you have the studies, and what do you guys, here's the thing, AP, what do you call it when, this isn't what we mean by it, this is what Christians mean by it, but the atheists, what they say we mean when we say we have faith is this: we're going against all the evidence. We're saying, oh, all the evidence says this, but we're going to believe this thing that's the opposite of that. And they say, that's what faith is, and that's not what biblical faith is. It's that you trust God on things because of things you already know about God. So I know God, I know this, and this about God. Therefore, I can trust God with all these other things. I can have faith. I can have faith in these things. I can have faith that things are going to work out. I can have faith in what happens in the future because I know who I know who I trust. But atheists say, no. You say you have faith in the absence of evidence. Okay, if all the evidence tells you that your ideas are not helping, you're not getting your scientific utopia, and you're paving the way for Islam, and you just believe the opposite in spite of all the evidence, wouldn't that be like what you guys mean by faith? I mean, you guys are saying, this is what religious people mean by faith. But wouldn't this mean that you have faith? Like blind faith in the blind sense? All the evidence tells us we're destroying our own societies. But we're going to believe that if we keep doing the same thing, we'll get our scientific utopia.
It would mean this is natural selection.
This is. And this, by the way, what you just said, natural selection. Remember, Dawkins applied the idea of a gene replicating to the idea of a meme replicating, ideas replicating. But that's the same thing, right? Like, certain ideas flourish and spread more rapidly than other ideas, and they have a kind of fitness. They have a kind of fitness that enhances their spread. Well, if you have a meme that affects the spread of your genes, that should be the next step, right? Like combining the ideas. Like he's got the idea of a gene, and then he says there's a parallel in the world of ideas, and that's the meme. But wait a minute, if your meme actually undermines the spread of if the spread of your meme undermines the spread of your genes, and then ultimately destroys your meme and your genes, isn't that kind of funny?
Maybe that's just what you deserve. Maybe that's just what you deserve. That's natural selection.
Get what you deserve. You get what you deserve. You came up with a stupid idea that destroys your societies. And then when your society gets destroyed, what are you going to be doing? You're going to be complaining about religious people for destroying your society that you destroyed. You giant walking clown emojis.
As said, there has to be a different alternative, and I would always propose, even if you want to have a secular society and a secular system, it should be one where at least
where at least I know I'm free. Oh, sorry.
Yes. where you outlaw casual sexual relationships and force everyone to get pregnant.
You crush everyone. You turn women into baby-making machines.
Yes.
Yeah, and 8th P, I think we're on the same boat. And I just said it a minute ago. I said, I'm not saying there's no way to make your secular... I'm not saying there's no way to make your scientific utopia work. I'm just saying, whatever it is, this is why we always go back to Nietzsche, right? Nietzsche's idea was, hey, you're getting rid of God. You better have something really, really big to replace that, because you have no idea what this is, how many things this is connected to. And if you just toss it aside, you need something really huge to replace it. And so I'm not I don't think it will work. I'm not saying it wouldn't work. I'm just saying if you want to try it, then you need to try it with something big. Like, try it with something big. Don't try it with this, we're going to go around and toss memes online and then we'll get our sign. No, you're not. You're not getting that at all. Look around you. You sound stupid. So.
You know what the thing is that the issue is when I look at the whole discussion around population growth and not making enough babies and going extinct. In all honesty, it's like I don't really care much about it, and I don't really think that it is much of a case of urgency. I mean, I know that importing Islam into your societies while you refuse to make while you refuse to preserve or increase your own population will result in something disastrous. It's in the end, it's a little bit difficult to tell people, to give people the idea that they just simply have to make more babies, and I don't think it's going to work out. And the bad thing is that society in general doesn't seem to be smart enough to catch up on the idea that that if you allow a very destructive idea into your society unchecked, and you just allow it to be destructive as long as it can, and you still hope that it will just not do all of those things that you are afraid it would do, it will end badly for you. It will end badly for you and your own society. I, for my part, I find it useful to tell people about the dangers of Islam and all the bad things about Islam, just so that I can maybe help some people go against it and help change something, help save some aspects of society. However, if in the end people end up just going basically making their smarter part go extinct and submit themselves to the religion of submission, well, so be it. It's just that humans just didn't deserve better, I guess.
I have to say, we've talked about this many times. There's always that element, right? Like you look at what's happening in Great Britain, and there's always that part of it. I mean, when me and Robert Spencer are doing This Week in Jihad, and we're talking about everything that's going on in France, everything that's going on in Germany, everything that's going on in the UK, there's always that part of me. You get what you deserve. This didn't happen on its own. You guys asked for this. You put politicians in place who told you they were going to do this, who have a track record of doing this, and you keep going along with it. With that said, there are, again, it's most of the people in these countries don't actually want this, but they're the ones who suffer. Their politicians, down the road, their politicians may suffer for this, but right now, their politicians live in posh neighborhoods and so on, and it's the regular people who have to deal with this. So you got the regular people; they're the ones who suffer, and they're the ones, like even the UK. Now they get arrested for even complaining about it. But anyway, it's this weird situation where you literally brought this all on yourself. You said, hey, what do we want? We want more of the guys screaming that they want to kill apostates and take our daughters, and so we can't get enough of these guys. Okay, when you get bad consequences, yeah, there's going to be part of us who's just, you asked for it, you giant morons. But again, it's the people who didn't ask for it that are the problem, right? There are people who definitely. The 12-year-old girl who's being gang, she's not the one who decided that. That decision was made for her by politicians, and by people who voted those politicians into power. So yeah, it's a sucky situation. And I guess AP's idea is, hey, if human beings are just so incredibly stupid and easy to manipulate that you can actually just shame them by calling them Islamophobes into being subjugated by Islam, maybe you just didn't deserve the freedoms that you had anyway. So
I mean, just look at this. I must say I have gotten significantly more I don't want to say pessimistic.
That's what I was going to say about you.
A little bit more, people call it black pill nowadays, but a little bit more realistic and a little bit harsher in the face of certain things since the whole Israel war started, where Israel actually, unlike Europe, is doing what a self-respecting society would do, and what a society that cares about its own citizens would do, and fights back and protects itself and so on, and doesn't listen to the noise of Western, so-called human rights organizations and all that, saying, oh no, you can't do this, you can't do that, you have to be nice, you have to be sweet, you have to give them flowers and all that. Israel says, you know what, we don't live in such a world. We know exactly what kind of a world we live in.
We have a more realistic picture of the world.
We live in the real world. In the real world over here, being nice to each other and singing and dancing together doesn't work. So please shut the F up and let us do our job and defend our own people. Europe cannot do the same thing. Europe has become so pathetic and so soft and so weak and so suicidal and idiotic that I don't know what to say anymore, you know. So I still keep up my hope in influencing some people, maybe, and want to talk about Islam where it matters, because I think as long as I breathe, there is hope. As long as I breathe, as long as we are alive, there is some hope, and maybe we can change some minds and all that, and that is what we do. But again, the contrast between Israel and Europe, and the fact that Israel gets so much hate right now for doing what Europe should have been doing all these decades, just shows to me that we live in a strange world.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if you had a little of that. Okay, here are terrorists who want to destroy us. Let's crush them. Let's hunt them down and crush them to keep them from doing that. Yeah, across Europe, what? How could you do that? No, what you need to do is open your arms to the terrorists and bring them into Europe and let them rape your daughters. It's the only way. How dare the Jews not do that? One correction, though, AP. You said the Jews said, oh, this singing and dancing doesn't work. Wrong. Jews love singing and dancing. I've seen it in your face.
That's true.
Hey, you have Carrefour here saying atheists don't have to make people feel bad to feel good themselves. Which atheists, Carrefour? Because in my videos, I usually distinguish between, like, what used to be dominant atheism, and then you got the new atheism. The new atheists? No, they really, really, really need to make people feel bad to feel good. They're the ones, oh, we're smart, everyone else is dumb. Do you want to be part of the smart group? You have to join us, otherwise you're a religitard. What do religious people do? They sit around praying and doing nothing for the world, while atheists go out and do science, and we're the ones who send people to the moon. That's. And you talk to Sky Daddy. Yeah, in other words, Careful, what planet are you living on right now? Because you say atheists don't need to do this. It's almost like you saying, religious people sit around praying. Atheists don't go around insulting people and calling them stupid. Where? What planet do you live on? Okay.
Yeah, well, have some respect for my boy Carrefour. Carrefour is based.
No, I know that's a regular here, but I got to call it out. I got to call it out when he's atheists. We're so nice, and we just go around trying to make everyone feel good.
Carrefour is, I don't know anything about Carrefour, but Carrefour is one of my favorites in the chat. Mm-hmm. But what you just said about Jews liking to dance and sing, you know what's so funny? I sometimes think this, but I don't know how to express it without sounding offensive to everyone involved. But I see people having all these stupid conspiracy theories about how Jews and these sects, and who knows what they do, and they're trying to control the world. And it turns out that they're more like a bunch of hippies. It's kind of it's so weird.
wherever like AP. I mean, we went all over Jerusalem, old city. We were in the new part of Jerusalem. We were all over Tel Aviv. Where do you get the idea of like sitting around in the room like these masterminds? Oh, we will destroy the world by importing this into their society and destroying it from within. And they're all like singing and dancing everywhere they go. So funny. Super chats, and then we'll hear what our buddy says. We're probably certainly not going to go through the entire debate, but we want to hear what this guy's arguments are. He is a sociologist and a professor. He's written books. AP's bot side accounts make up 12% of the chat. Actually, it's 11% because base Christianity is at 89% right now. So 11%. Get it right next soccer night. No more accurate than Can an Islamic State ever be as productive culturally, artistically as a Christian or secular state?
It can if it decides to just destroy itself.
But I mean, it kind of depends on what you mean by culturally. Because, like, they would say, "Of course, we're culturally superior. Look at the superior culture of Afghanistan." Kind of depends, right? It kind of depends on what you mean by that stuff.
Glad you were here when the shit hit
Let's
the
see.
fan.
This debate was painful. Don't get your hopes up. What are you talking about? We just listened to Mike Jones. That wasn't painful. IP did his research. Phil just showed up, honestly. Good. You see that? Devin says Phil showed up with the truth and the research.
I have to say one thing, though, David.
What?
Don't you agree that, especially among prominent figures, those who have most openly spoken out against Islam, for example, against Islamization and the dangers of Islam, some significant figures were actually atheists, not Christians, over the last few decades.
Tons of them. And even,
This is a very well-known one who has openly
the new atheists, especially the leaders, it was less common among the regular new atheists, like the regular foot soldiers. The leaders of the new atheists tended to all be like, yes, we have a problem with religion in general. Yes, we're going to attack religion in general, but we have a really big problem. They understood there is a hierarchy, and this one is really bad. The problem is who's around them that they're attacking mostly Christians and Christian ideas, and so the Muslims aren't really listening to them as much because Muslims aren't in those, going to those schools and so on. So it's having a bigger impact on a young generation of Christians, so they're ultimately paving the way. But no, I mean, Sam Harris, Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, not so much Dennett. Dennett, I've said before, is like the smartest, but he was not the best communicator of his ideas and so on. But even other people, Bill Maher and so on, who's friends with Sam Harris and so on. So yeah, there have been tons of. Here's the thing. When the new atheists came out, it was, look what just happened, 9/11. This is what religion does. So we need to respond to religion. And along the way, they are saying, hey, we are especially concerned about Islam. Sam Harris called it the motherlode of bad ideas. But their followers are a bunch of young high school and college students whose grandma made them go to church, and they're angry at that. They're more angry at that, and that's who they end up taking it out on. But you have all these other associated ideas, like, okay, your ideas do somehow lower birth rates and so on, and so this is ultimately due. So yes, an atheist can have a very good point against Islam. A Muslim can have a good point against something. So we're not saying that there are people here who are totally wrong or there are people who are totally right. As IP pointed out, this is okay. Which is better? Secularism has some serious problems that you need to deal with. And until you deal with those, secularism can be better for society because secularism will ultimately not even be able to sustain a society.
That moment of Sam Harris sitting at Bill Maher with Ben Affleck and telling him, look, bad ideas, but Islam is the motherlode of bad ideas. And Ben Affleck.
And then watching Ben Affleck, oh my God, what gross!
That should be considered a golden moment on TV. And religious discussions.
That was huge. That was huge. And really, that's actually part of the problem, because you had all kinds of people watching going, wow, Sam is right on the money. And they think, oh, he's on the money. He's right on the money on other things. No, he might be kind of disastrous on other things. It also illustrated kind of the divide between, because those guys would have all considered themselves like on the left politically. But you saw kind of a division there where, okay, here are us guys who actually believe in certain liberal values, and Islam is a threat to those things. And other guys are just part of like the Hollywood crowd, and they cling to the idea that Islam is good, and they have to be the supreme defenders of Islam all day. And it really, I don't know, drew a bunch of attention to that, showed Ben Affleck looking like a complete moron, although I don't know if that was ever in doubt. But yeah, no, I mean, you can... There's no, hey, I like something Sam Harris said, therefore Sam Harris is right about everything. That's problematic thinking with anyone you're pointing at. But Sam Harris has said awesome things in the past. He said really dumb things in the past. Bill Maher has said awesome things. Bill Maher has said really dumb things. It's like Bill Maher. I made a video about it. He's like he'll sit there and in one video he'll quote a poll showing that the new generation, the young generation in America is the most atheistic generation there's ever had. The crowd cheers and stuff. You see, we're making a difference. And in his next show, he'll be pointing out that the young generation is the dumbest, most gullible generation in history. It's like, how are you not making the connection here? You're saying, hey, isn't it great that all these young people are becoming atheists? And then in your next thing, you're showing that these are the most gullible and easily manipulated group that you've ever had. How are you not making the connection there? Anyway, so it's just if people say something that's true, you say, great, that's true. Some people say something dumb, you say, okay, last week you said something that's great and true, but right now you're saying something that's really stupid. Norm says secularist arguments boil down to, don't tell me what to do, Dad! I don't like the sky. We don't like your sky, Daddy! I don't know how we can debate this. Most of our society is based on values from religion. Well, you have lots of ideas that are based on values that are derived from religion. You could make the claim, I'm not defending it here, but you could make the claim that there are still better ideas, and it would be better to follow these other ideas. And the question is this guy going to be able to show that secularism has better ideas? Michael answers yes. Atheism or Christianity, which is better for humanity? That's kind of a joke. You can always answer this either or by just saying yes to it, because logically, if you're saying one of these would have to be better, and therefore the answer could be yes.
Yes.
Seek the cross. AP, what do you think of Proverbs 34? Lord bless. 30, chapter 30, verse 4. That one's interesting because that gets used in the New Testament by the Apostle Paul.
Saying if a goose and Jack and an inspired utterance is man's utterance, so to Ithiel. I am a weary god, but I can prevail. Surely I am only a brute, not a man. I do not have a human understanding. I have not learned wisdom, nor have I attained to the knowledge of the Holy One. Who has gone up to heaven and came down? Whose hands have gathered up the wind? Who has wrapped up the waters in a cloak? Who has established all the ends of the earth? What is his name, and what is the name of his son? Surely you know. Every word of God is flawless. I understand why you're quoting this. I see, however, how immediately you would understand this differently if you didn't go by the context that you want to go with. But that said, I don't think anything of this. I would need to read more of this to then give you to tell you what I think about it. But thank you, I appreciate it.
Let's see. This is a theory on Groypers. Someone bastardized Goyim and they just ran with it. It's like one of those dopes said, what'd they call us? Groyim? No, they called us Groypim. Okay, well, we'll call ourselves Groypers. I have End of Faith because school. Should I read it? I mean, it depends. What's the purpose? There could be all kinds of reasons for reading something. I mean, I read the Quran, not because I'm affirming it. But what's up?
Yeah, those people going about, oh, Jews call people Goyim. It's like,
break that down for everyone.
It's just another indicator that these guys have no idea about scripture, about their own religion that they supposedly follow. Many of them pretend to be Christians. They don't even know, and so on. It's so dumb. It's Goyim. Right, Goy simply means nation. It just means people. It is a word repeatedly used in the Bible to refer to different nations. It is even used when God speaks to Abraham and says that I will make your offspring a great nation. It is even used in that sense. He says, I will make of you a great Goy. No. It talks about the Jews and says that they will be a great Goy, a great nation.
Yeah, it's from the Talmud and it says it's a Goy with all the people who have to be killed and subjugated. We have to kill their blood and put on blood. It says I read it on Twitter.
It literally, by Jews later on, it simply became a usage of separating your own community and those who are non-Jews. So, for example, you talk about certain laws, and then you talk about whether this is in reference to the Jews or to the rest of the people. The easy way to refer to the rest of the people became the Goyim, for example, the Goyim, the nations, the people. And the funny thing is that this is not just something that Talmudic Jews do. It is something that Jesus himself used. Jesus himself used it. The Gospels are written in Greek, but Jesus is reported several times as referring to people as Gentiles. What was most likely used there in the Aramaic or the Hebrew would be Goy. It is directly translated into Greek as ethnos, which is or ethnos, which is directly the same word, the same translation: people, nations. So it's not something evil or something Jewish, something vile, some great conspiracy. These people are so ignorant.
AP, who are we going to listen to? You or Groypers? Huh? Who are we going to listen to? You or the Groypers, who explain what Judaism teaches about these things? Come on, be realistic here.
But the Groypers.
Maybe you can make a video focused on the best charities for persecuted Christians. I don't know if I'd make a video, but I don't know. I guess it might be relevant for someone to go through, because all these groups have ratings. But yeah, the Open Doors, Voice of the Martyrs, some of the main groups that deal with helping persecuted Christians and so on. Even if Christianity is false, it's better for humanity. I mean, that is an important factor in this debate, is arguing Christianity is better for humanity or secularism is better for humanity. There, you're not even arguing that one is true. You're just saying it's better in light of certain things. You can make the argument. In other words, even if even if you don't believe in secularism or Christianity, you could say, well, this one would be better. Just like you could sit back and say, okay, what's better for society? Hinduism or Buddhism? Hinduism or Islam? You can sit there and look at that and then figure out what criteria you're using and say, okay, well, based on these criteria, this one is better than that. And so, yeah, this debate, strictly speaking, is not this ideology is true or that one is true. This one is, hey, what is better for humanity? And I think Mike Jones here made a pretty airtight case, but we have not heard from our sociology professor of sociology. He's written multiple books. Cost of living is also a factor. I guess cost of living. I don't know if there's good evidence on how cost of living is affected. I mean, I haven't seen it. I don't know if there's actual evidence on which kind of society affects cost of living the most. Which is less based, atheism or Islam? AP, what's your answer? Which is less based, atheism or Islam?
If you want to define based as brutal and ruthless, it would be atheism. But if we want to define it as a measure to define what is better, then it would be Islam.
Who defines based as either one of those things?
That looks spectacular.
Lots of people.
Regarding Islamic replacement, could the apostate rate underperform the Muslim birth rate? Would that still be a problem? Is apostasy that frequent? Well, that's one thing we focus on, because you have again, it's called the avalanche of apostasy. But one thing you want to see is apostasy rates in Islam ultimately surpass the birth rates in Islam. With that said, even once you get to the point where global apostasy rates in Islam outstrip the higher birth rates in Islam, then what you would have is the total number of Muslims in the world declining. That doesn't necessarily do away with the problem. If your birth rates in Western nations are so low, if you have the lowest